I'm here with Kathy Fitzgibbon. Kathy, how wonderful to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Frank. Wonderful to see you too.
Yes. So we're recording this on Wednesday, June 3rd. I'm in New York City. Kathy is in Portland, Oregon. Just a brief word before we start. You're okay? Your family? How are things in Portland these days?
Yeah, thank you. We're all okay and thankfully healthy. And Portland, I mean, I've mostly been at home because of coronavirus issues, but there's been a lot of protests happening here and around the country. And Portland just had a really powerful protest with thousands of people lying down, face down on the Burnside Bridge, and very peacefully, but very powerfully. So, and happily, things have been fairly safe in the last couple of days, and I'm hopeful this will be a really important moment for our country as we work to make some important changes in our criminal justice system.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you and your family are safe and healthy.
Yeah, thank you.
So, many of our choristers know you and love you for your long years at BCI, but for the benefit of those who haven't seen you in a while or haven't worked with you, give us a brief musical background for yourself. You know, so many of us get music lessons as a child. What led you to music as a profession, number one, and then conducting specific as number two?
Sure. Um, well, I grew up. I was a dancer as a kid, and also started taking piano lessons when I was 9, and loved the piano. And we would joke in my family that we'd get home from school, my brother and I, and he knew I couldn't wait to practice piano, so he would yell, "I call the piano," and go running to the piano first just to torture me. And I'd say, "Mom, that's not fair." And of course, he'd play for a minute and then be gone, but I was in that minute, I was suffering. I couldn't wait to get there. So I loved to play, and I didn't start singing until 8th grade or so. And I think I've told you, Frank, that part of why I started singing was I saw my high school show choir perform and decided that was what I wanted to do. Now, if you didn't grow up in the Midwest, you might know of show choir from things like Glee, but we're talking like sequins and big hair and makeup and Broadway style dance moves and everything. And my little dancer heart was very excited. And so, I mean, yours would be too, I know. So if you had grown up in Indianapolis, that would have been you, Frank. So
If it gets any bigger.
so yes, so I fell in love with that and started singing just because I wanted to get into the show choir. And I didn't even know that you could be a classical singer. Like, I was playing all of the classical repertoire as a pianist, and then I was doing my like razzle dazzle thing. And it wasn't until later that I got to kind of marry all of those things. And so in college, I started doing a lot more classical singing, and I did start taking voice lessons in high school too. So a little bit of classical work there. And I got involved with BCI the summer before my senior year in college, and I was an intern, we called it way back then, but a precursor to our apprentice program, and I just fell in love with it. It was 5 weeks in Sheffield, and this very idyllic spot where, as you all know, everybody comes and loves classical choral music. So it was something that was a great growth opportunity for me. And right about then is when I had just gotten started with conducting as well. And so I had in my college the opportunity to conduct my a cappella singing group and take some conducting lessons. I went to Princeton as an undergrad, and Westminster Choir College is right around the corner, and they have a reciprocal agreement. So I got to take choral conducting lessons at Westminster while taking coursework at Princeton, and that was an amazing opportunity. And that is where I really fell in love with conducting.
Hmm.
So I got to apply for graduate schools in conducting and went to the University of Michigan for my master's degree. and Boston University for my doctorate in conducting. And all the while, I continued going to BCI and starting as an apprentice, and gradually there was a summer where when Trudy was executive director and asked me to be the program editor, and I have a musicology heart as well, and so I loved getting to work on the programs and the program notes and that sort of thing. And then I had a summer where I was away and worked at a music festival in Italy. And the following year, Frank, you called me and invited me to have a sort of a junior faculty position so I could continue to grow. And it was so wonderful. I felt really seen, and I felt like you were taking such a personal interest in my development as a musician and conductor. And it meant so much as a young conductor to have those kinds of opportunities. So yeah,
My
thank you.
absolute pleasure. My pleasure. You know, I think you have a unique take or a unique viewpoint of BCI because you were an apprentice and a faculty member and conductor and a soloist and program editor. You've done everything but sell tickets in the box office.
I might have subbed there on a lunch break though, I think sometime when I was an apprentice. So I did that too. Yes. We used to put little chocolates on the pillows. The apprentices would do that. So I think we can call that housekeeping. So yes, I feel like I've seen it from many,
Yeah,
many angles.
I have. Um, any memories particularly stand out? I mean, that's a very broad question because you've been there for so long, but
Oh my goodness. I mean, I have so many, and they are like, the kinds of memories you hold close to your heart forever that are just transformative. I remember singing the Dvorak Stabat Mater with Bob Page, and at the sort of final moment where the orchestra drops out and there's that sort of triumphant a cappella choir, just having chills. I mean, that was, I think, my second year, might have been 1998, and it was just one of those electric moments, and we all felt it, the whole choir, everybody afterwards, like, did you feel that? We all were so present in that moment with Bob and with the music, and it just felt so connected. And boy, I have so many Bob Page memories, and telling Bob Page stories. We could do that lovingly for the rest of our conversation. That'd be a great talk. Just we can have our notebook of very quotable moments. But he told the sopranos in the, was it the Verdi Requiem at the beginning, that he just wanted this very floaty, innocent, sweet sound. And he said, I'm looking for a virginal sound. And he said, if you can remember that far back. And then we sang it. We were trying really hard for that virginal sound. And he said, sopranos, that sounded used. So Bob Page, but no one else can get away with saying that. But Bob Page can get away with saying that. So it was really, that was great. I feel also just all of the different conductors over the years, Tom Hall, Frank Nemhauser, Jane Glover, and that amazing Brahms Requiem she did that I just loved so much, just so sensitive and graceful and tender. And all of these musical moments, but also just getting to see the way that people worked with the choir in rehearsal. So from nitty gritty rehearsal techniques, like, ooh, I like how they broke down that section. I'm going to write that down and remember to use that with my choir at home. But also this kind of intangible way that people have of being with a choir and of connecting with people. I mean, you show up, you all know, you show up on Monday morning and you're finding this rapport with the conductor, who, for many of you, you've never worked with that person, and you have a week to make magic together. And so seeing the kind of interpersonal connections people were forming, and the way they did that, and the humor they used, or the personal stories they shared, or just even the manner of speaking with the choir. There are so many different ways to do it that work for different personalities, but I felt like there were ways I could learn of how to share enough of yourself and openly and freely and joyfully, and to invite in a kind of positive and yet really focused, really hardworking participation from the choir that insists on excellence. And so that's a huge thing I've taken away from all of these amazing
You know,
models.
told apprentices who are about to experience BCI, or faculty members or people, choristers who are there for the first time, what you learn from these different conductors is invaluable. Watching conductors put together a show in completely different ways. And I know, because we've talked about it, you and I have stolen from all of them.
Absolutely. Stolen from the best. Yes, exactly.
Page, I once told him that I've stolen so much from you, I'm surprised you have anything left.
That's good. I would say I've stolen so much from you, I've forgotten where you end and I begin. But yeah.
Right. So, how did you make your way to Portland?
Yeah, so I was finishing up my doctorate at Boston University, and I got on the job market as one does, and I was open to moving wherever based on what the opportunities were. And I thought it was pretty likely I'd want to teach at the college level. And I'd had some part-time college, having my own choir at Clark University in Worcester, and I'd been the assistant conductor at Harvard, and I'd had these experiences where I kept thinking, oh, like I love working with college students. I love that age, and I really believe in the liberal arts. And so this job was one of the jobs I applied for at Lewis and Clark College, which is a great small private liberal arts college in Portland. And they have a wonderful music program here. And I had never even been in Oregon before, never set foot in Oregon. And I tell the story that I was on the airplane coming in, and, the clouds parted and the plane is flying lower, and you all of a sudden see these rolling green hills and the white mountain, the snow-capped mountain of Mount Hood, and the river all blue and beautiful right through it. And I was like, yeah, I could live here. I hadn't even touched down. I was like, yep, this looks good. So, and everybody was very friendly and very welcoming, and I had a great sense of the college, and got the offer and was just delighted. So, and I've loved it. I've been here for 12 years now, since 2008. And I just found out I will be full professor as of this coming fall. So thank you. So it's been a really, really great fit, and really growing program. And so that's been great. That's how I ended up here.
So you began your own professional chorus in Portland. Can you tell us about how you did that, the nuts and bolts, and how you put that together, and what that's like for you working with such a group?
Sure. So I have a professional choir called Resonance Ensemble, and I started it in 2010, and it was partly in collaboration with other singers here. I noticed when I came here that while there are a couple of really great professional groups that do primarily sacred music, there wasn't one doing a wider variety of music, and especially new music, which is a really close love of mine. And in addition, I'm really interested in thematic programming and in concerts that tell stories. And there wasn't anyone kind of doing that here in Portland. So the singers I spoke with were like, yes, please, let's start a thing, and wanted to help and wanted to be kind of my early board for it. So I didn't really know what I was doing as far as running an organization, like in all possible ways, but I had a lot of great mentorship from some of the other choir professionals here in town, and we got our 501c3 status a year later, and it's just been growing and growing, and it's been really exciting. And I think we've really come into our own in the last couple of years. We started doing these interdisciplinary thematic kinds of concert programs with all different types of ideas behind them. Some of them had just as kind of an idea to it, but some of them were, there was one reflecting on weddings that had Lenos and other things. So not necessarily, the big challenging issues of the times. And we had a couple of things happen a couple years ago. There was a review of a resonance concert, which had some pretty difficult racial language about one of our African-American performers, and we were really shocked and troubled by that, and pushed back with the editorial board, and they wrote a long reflection about it and apologized deeply, and set up a more diverse writing staff in response to that. There were sort of a number of positive changes that came of those conversations. And one of the nice things about having a small nonprofit is that you can be pretty nimble. And our board decided, and I asked them if could we change our mission statement and really rededicate ourselves to creating concerts that promote meaningful social change, so that while we're doing this kind of thematic concert work, and especially working with new music and with a lot of living composers, we can be helping create a body of music that doesn't exist yet, that's telling stories that aren't always heard in the classical choral community, and from particular composers who may be less known, or poets. And it's been really exciting. It's kind of, I think it's honestly galvanized our artists here, but our arts community in Portland. And I have to say, since making this switch, we've been selling out all of our concerts. We've been having, our fundraising is, easier, because people are really feeling a need right now to go to a concert that's going to be thought-provoking, that's going to either invite them to consider someone's experience that's different from their own, or to find themselves represented on stage, have that, I keep thinking of Killing Me Softly with his song, the sort of, he's singing my life with his words kind of idea, that that has power as well. So representation. And so it's been really exciting. I have this feeling like I've figured out what I want to do when I grow up, and I'm doing it now. And it's been an exciting pivot that we've made.
And how
So
gratifying for you as well.
thank you. Yes, it's been really exciting. And the commissions that we've done, I feel really proud of, and they're now being picked up by choirs all over the country, which is our hope, that we're helping, bring to life new choral music that can make a difference for a lot of different communities. So
And you won an award from Chorus America.
I did. Thank you. Yes, last summer I won the Louis Botto Award, and I know you knew him through Chanticleer, right?
Right. Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's the Louis Botto Award for innovative action and entrepreneurial zeal. It's the only award I've ever won with the word zeal in it,
Yes.
but I was delighted. So yes, yeah, that was really exciting.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks.
Speaking of new music, can you talk a little bit about how you go about learning and what your process is and how to prepare something? It's one thing to conduct your first Brahms Requiem, and while it's new for you and there's an awful lot to learn, you sort of know the piece in a certain way, having sung it and heard it and experienced it, but something that's never been performed before, so it's new to you and it's new to everybody. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really exciting about it is that you have the opportunity to have a kind of collaborative study process with the composer, depending on your relationship with the composer. But often, if we're doing the world premiere, it's a work that we've commissioned, or where the composer had reached out about something that was already in process. And so I can have some really deep conversations, or not deep conversations. The like, do you need us to breathe? Do you care if I give them a breath here? Kind of stuff. They're like, whatever, do what you need. And so, but that kind of collaborative energy is really exciting for me. And a lot of the composers we work with, they're excited to do something and then hand it over and have you put your own interpretive stamp on it. Like, they don't want it to be quite so prescriptive.
Mm-hmm.
And so so that's where there's this lovely kind of give and take, where you feel like you're bringing something to life together. I think still all of the good score study rules apply. Like, you got to know the piece and study the form and think deeply about what you want, what kind of sound quality. I think that's kind of a fun thing. And especially with the professional choir, you can get into sort of like, what is the tone like here? And exactly how much of a crescendo is this? And does this feel like a kind of impassioned build up kind of thing? Or is this the like, slow and steady kind of thing? And and it's fun to kind of think through that. And still, some of it, when you just get with the singers, some of it kind of unfolds in the moment. So sometimes I think it's going to be a certain way, and then the singers do something and you think, oh no, that one, that's actually much better, I like that. And so there's kind of a magical in the moment aspect of it that that is really exciting, and one of the reasons I really enjoy that.
You were just talking about working with the composer, and the composers often like to see your take on things. And in a certain way, it's not music when it's on the page. It's not music until it's up on the feet, and you hear, and the composer hears what's happening, and then you react to what you're hearing and make changes as appropriate.
Absolutely. And one of my teachers, Theo Morrison, who is also a composer and conductor, says, music is supposed to describe what it will ultimately sound like, not prescribe. So it isn't exactly every possible detail. And he also reminds me that usually the tempo markings that composers put in, they'll come to you, often will go into the first rehearsal that the composer is hearing, and they'll be like, that feels really fast, and you're like, no, that's exactly what you wrote. And they're like, well, I didn't mean it that way. So anyway, there's again sort of this back and forth that happens as well. Or sometimes the opposite, where I'll say, I know you said 72, but it's killing me. Like, can I please do, this other thing instead? And they'll be like, well, try it and I'll listen. And they'll be like, oh yeah, that is better. So some of it is like, even for the composer, like they're doing their best guess on the page as to what they think is going to serve the music. But then when you hear it with real voices and a real acoustic, it makes a big difference.
And we don't have that luxury with the Brahms Requiem. Did you really mean this?
That's right. Like, I'm just gonna figure Brahms couldn't possibly have meant that. Yeah, but he can take that up with me later, right? So yes.
So you just talked about working with professional singers and tone quality, how you can work with them, and perhaps you guide a crescendo in this particular way. How is that different working with the professionals than it might be working with your students, say?
I think it depends on the level of vocal technique of the students, but especially with my less experienced, freshmen and sophomores in college, I mean, some of them are still just working on some pretty good fundamentals of healthy bel canto singing technique. And so I want to be really careful that if I do ask for anything other than just, do what you're working on as your good, healthy voice technique, that I'm giving them some really specific tips for how they can make those vocal timbre shifts in ways that are vocally healthy. So if I ask for less vibrato, for example, I'm going to model for them and explain to them exactly how they can do it without putting the vise grip on the larynx. And if I'm asking for a brighter sound, I might give them some warm-up exercises that can show them where to find that, or a darker sound, and really make them very aware of what they're doing and how and why. And with the professional singers, by and large, I can be like, do it bright, and like they're like, meh, and they do it, and you don't have to explain to them how to make that sound quite so much. But I still feel like you can push everybody, and you can ask a lot of singers, and like I find that my college students really, like, they hear those fine differences and they want to be able to do them. They just may not yet know how to do it. And so I'm trying to be cautious that I'm only asking for things that they are at an age and an ability level to do well and correctly. Yeah.
That's so terrific to hear, and so sensitive of you. So often in music schools, the voice teachers don't want their voice majors to sing in a chorus because the chorus director will insist on straight tone, and just as you say, the singer may not have the technique or the ability to do it in a healthful way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's terrific. This is what I want, and let's explore how to do this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
And that's why you go to school, right? You want to learn some tips and grow as a musician and be able to express your musical imagination. So I'm happy to be part of that.
So, we can't have a conversation during these times without talking about COVID-19, which has affected all of our lives. And both as a teacher and a performer, you had to transition to teaching online, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and having two small children at home while trying to do this, it's an unbelievable juggling act for you and many, many others. Um, None of us knows, what's going to happen. But do you have any thoughts on where you might be going in the short term or long term, either at school or with the Resonance Ensemble?
Um, I have a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is no. I mean, the long answer is I am close, right? I wish I had a super clear idea of how long this will last and everything. I think, though, I've been trying to be very research oriented and staying really on top of all of the studies that are coming out that have to do with aerosols and transmission of the virus. And my first and foremost goal is to make sure that my singers are safe and that my family is safe, and so that what I'm doing as well is chosen with care. And it really seems as though for the near term, there most likely won't be good ways for us to sing together in an indoor space for an extended length of time. And so I'm very much thinking all summer. I've been doing a lot of technology research and brainstorming about types of things we can do in the fall with my college students, and also having a lot of conversations with our community partners for Resonance as well, thinking about what the season could look like. And with everything we're doing, trying to just build in a lot of flexibility, a lot of scenario planning. I do think, once there's a vaccine, it's going to be a really different ballgame. But I think until that point, there's sort of one more big study that's out there, and probably a lot of you are aware of this, that is underway, that there's a study that's been co-commissioned by a lot of our national music organizations at the University of Colorado. And I think those results are supposed to come out by early July, I heard. And so that's one that's really specific to musicians, and thinking about how much aerosol with what kind of viral load is being transmitted by singing with or without a mask, and playing a tuba or a flute, and all of the other kinds of considerations. So but from some of the studies that have already taken place, I would be surprised if the findings are too different, but I still think this is supposed to be a very comprehensive set of studies happening right now. So I'm eager to see what they come up with. And I know all of us just miss being in the same room and making music together. That's so
And so
special.
it's the act of making music, but it's the act of being together and
Mm-hmm.
seeing one another.
Mm-hmm. I have to say though, I mean, this is maybe a little Mary Sunshine, but like, my community choir, we've decided we're having these Tuesday nights through the summer. I'm doing this kind of optional, anybody who wants to drop in, tell your friends. We're up to a couple hundred people now who are doing this, and it's just for an hour, just to have a little kind of community over Zoom. And yeah, it's not the same. You all know it's hard to sing at the same time synchronously. It really involves either me singing and people singing along with their microphones muted from the privacy of their own home, or me playing a recording and we're singing along with the recording. But there's still something, it's interesting. They asked me if I would stand and conduct along with the recording. And those of you who are conducting students know that's like one of the sort of things you're never supposed to practice, conducting with a recording. Like, where's the ability to make music in the moment? And like, that is in fact what is missing. But they said just that the idea that they could sit there and they could see on their Zoom screen like dozens of faces that they know and love, and they were singing along with the recording, and they were singing and they were watching me, and it had that kind of feeling, and they all were like in tears about it and felt like it was somehow just a little bit scratching that itch. It's like we all know what we're missing, but there are these ways where we still feel like we're in it together, and we can have these really beautiful collaborative kinds of ventures together. So
Wonderful.
yeah, that's kind of nice.
And I was talking with Tom Hall recently, who put it so well. He said, somebody will come up with an idea that we haven't thought of yet.
Mm-hmm.
New ways of communicating and new ways of singing and rehearsing together that we just haven't thought of yet. So.
There are, and there's a software designer here in Portland who's doing something so far just with small chamber groups of people, but I think, larger ensembles will be the next frontier, where the delay is actually baked into the thing. So whoever goes first can't hear anybody else, but so if it's the conductor or the accompaniment or whatever can go first, and then they play it deliberately with the slight delay, the video and audio, to the second person, and they sing along with the first person. They feel like they're doing it at the same time. And then the combined audio of both of the first two people is sent to the third person, a few seconds later, and then to the fourth person. They haven't gotten too much farther than that because I think there might start to be some massive bandwidth needed, but it's exciting, and they have that feeling. Again, the first person doesn't, right? The first person is just going to have to kind of do it and kind of be like the concert master and kind of, be sniffing and showing things and everything, and everyone else will be following that person's lead. But that's still, that's kind of exciting. That starts to feel a little bit more like we're actually making music in our separate locations. So that's been really exciting.
Sounds like the musical equivalent of the telephone game.
It's totally. By the time it gets to the fourth person, they're in a different key. It's all, a different time signature, but yes.
Kathy, it's been so great to talk with you. Thank you so much for doing this. And if you'll stick around, and those of you listening, if you'll stick around, we'll transition to a question and answer period. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.